Good morning to all of you. Today we have gathered to have the session on PhD guidance in IITs and IIM. So first of all, I would like to welcome all our guest speakers today. We have Abhyuday Anand Mishra from IIM Kashipur as a research scholar, Falguni Gupta, IIM Kashipur, Komal Datta, IIT Kharagpur, Reena Kumari, IIM Ranchi, and Divyam Jain from IIM Kashipur. So I will hand it over to Abhyuday and he will be starting the session with all of you. Abhyuday, sir, over to you.
Yes, fine. So this I believe that this workshop or this session would really help you to broaden your knowledge about PhD admissions and also help a bit in securing admissions. So we have with us, as the members have already been introduced, I would say the first thing to do is to begin. To make a list. First is make a list. So you have to see what all IIMs are there, what all suits you. Also, this should be more done in a manner so that it is consolidated at one place so that you do not miss on any of the timelines. Whereas this process of admissions, gaining admissions to IIMs is really competitive, also in the sense that the number of seats are really on the lower sides. And you do not know what candidate or what area does suit them, what kind of topic would they be interested in, what works, you never know. So you have to apply to maximum the IIMs to maximize your chances. That is one thing. So make a list, carve a list. This year, I believe that most of the IIMs have begun their PhD programs. As of now, even Nagpur has also begun from this year, being the newest one. So all of the IIMs are successfully running their PhD programs, and the next thing would be the steps involved. So Reena, if you can.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Abhinand. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Please go on.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. I have started sharing my video also. I hope it is visible. So let's begin with the first topic, that is make sure you fulfill the eligibility criteria. So guys, you need to check all the websites of IIM Ranchi. So I will be giving you a basic idea about the eligibility. So the basic idea is you should having a master's degree, plus you need a score. It could be a net score, JRF or a CAT. It totally depends on you. And coming to the background, if engineering people, so if you have, there is one option in IIM, I'm not aware about the IIT, but I'm sure that engineers can directly apply for the PhD program. For that, you also need a score CAT. And then application timeline is from November to February. So guys, you need to be very much careful, because sometimes what happens now, sometimes we are very careless, and that's why we miss the timeline. And then you, as Abhyuday already told, that you need to apply to majority of the IIMs because you need to maximize your chances and start preparing for the interviews. And this part I will cover later on also. And shortlist to be out by February or March. And then you will prepare for your interview. That is a March to May. Next slide. I request Divyam to continue this topic.
Thank you, Reena. So guys, it's a very important thing to see that how we identify our area of research, which we basically include in our SOP or any research idea section. So basically there are two case scenarios that are possible. First is you do have a research idea in your mind, and the next could be you like a subject, but you are not aware of the fact that what should be your research idea. So I'll be try to look for the both. So if you have a research idea in your mind, what you need is to synthesize. You have to match your idea with the existing literature. See, research is not like a dream. So which will come up and you will try to fulfill it. It's a gradual process. It's a substantial process. Now, what is the literature? At this stage, we actually refer literature as the existing research papers also the academic books. So you have to support the whole of your idea with the pre-existing literature, how you can build a whole story in and around it. Now, what are the best sources to find them? I would say the top-notch journals, the famous publications of that area, of that particular subject or topic could be the best source you can find. That will also help you in the interview part as well. If you do not have any research idea in your mind, so try to look for some working areas which are currently, trending, or what have been the whole storyline of the research side of your particular area. Now, where you can find that, the best sources for these are, for finding the trending topics, you can look for the foreign universities website. They do have a very clear section for the PhD, like on what topics they are looking for the research. And Google Scholar could be a good source where you can find the relevant research papers or the latest research papers in that particular area. For finding academic books, there are various sources. So you first have to make clear on which side you are, and accordingly you have to move forward. Next slide, please, Abhidha.
If we have Komal with us, Komal.
Yes, am I audible, Abhyuday?
Yes, you are. Please go on.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and thank you. As you can see, the heading is research ideas in economics, but I have listed only the areas. So it's very difficult to classify a particular idea under a particular area. For example, you can say if you are working on labor economics. So labor economics is itself, in itself a very big field, a very major subfield. But if you are working on industrial economics, industrial labor, it can be a part of industrial economics. At the same time, it can be a part of development economics. And at the same time, it can be a part of labor economics. Similarly, if you're working on agricultural labor, again, it can be a part of agricultural economics. It can be a part of labor economics. So in this way, a particular idea fits into multiple areas. So I have just given a conventional and emerging areas. Again, I'll say that it is not a very clear-cut demarcation to classify some area as conventional or emerging, but we can have some idea, right, that micro and macroeconomics are the oldest major field of economics, and these circular economy, behavioral economics, these are emerging right now in recent years. So if you are to decide your area, then at least it's very important that you come up with an idea first. Don't worry about the area, okay? So to come up with an idea, the most important thing is that you need to have an interest in that. And if you have some instinct or inclination about some idea, then be very confident about that and start talking about it, studying about it, talk to your professors, peers, seniors, or you can study about it, good books and good authors on it. The recent publications, top journal publications can be referred to for it, to give a relevant shape to your idea, right? So this is all what I want to say when you want to come up with an idea. And anything can be made researchable if you are ready to work on it, if you have a willingness to learn, and you just need to explore that topic, okay? Just follow your instinct and start studying. You will definitely find a relevant shape to give it to your idea. I think I'm done. Thank you.
So if we talk about research ideas in OBHR, so OBHR, you have to first demarcate what is OB, what is HR. So if I talk about OB, so organizational behavior is, there are three levels we deal with in our area. So one is the individual level, other is the group level, and then is the organizational level. That is colloquially called as micro, meso. So you have to see in OB, like there are topics that relate to organizational justice, ethics. Then there are positive organizational behavior, counterproductive work behavior. People are also working on work passion, emotional intelligence, motivation, leadership, teams and networks, negotiation, creativity, millennials. So such kind of ideas can be incorporated into organizational behavior. If I talk to HRM, so HRM has been like, there have been many developments, more so with the incoming of technology. So strategic agility in HRM could be one. HRM, how it figures in MSME, that can be another. HR analytics is given momentum, then HRM in services, EHRM, also called as digital HRM, how work has been changing, gender in HRM, green HRM, sustainable HRM, ethics and HRM, gig economy, talent management. So these topics are broadly areas. So you can search, you can go to Google Scholar, search these areas, what is being done, what has been done till now. So that will really help you shape your interest and also give you your research idea the shape that it is relevant in today's research ecosystem. Next is yes, Falguni, if you are there.
Yeah. So if we talk about marketing and public policy, these are two very broad and different distinct areas, where marketing area mostly includes areas related to your branding and retailing, and we are talking about how you're going to do your pricing management, or if you're talking about in terms of national or international marketing. So if you see the areas I've listed over here, these are broadly the areas which I found in most of the IIMs where we are talking about PhD in marketing, like consumer behavior, service marketing, contemporary branding and retailing, pricing management, international marketing. Digital marketing is something which is being emerging as a very, very new area and very demanding area. Behavioral decision making, same again, I would say the same for it. Social media analytics, especially in today's time where everybody is going online to buy anything and everything, such areas have a lot of potential now. Experiential marketing has been something which a lot of people are working, where they are looking up at different marketing styles, how people can experience a certain sort of emotion or certain sort of ambience when they are talking about marketing strategies. Value co-creation and sharing economy, and then sustainability and marketing is something which is very high today's time. When I come to public policy is a very diverse field, and anybody from any background can come into it if he or she has interest in policy level. So see, a person from finance background can talk about public finance and policies. Similarly, from a sociology background, you can work in sociology of public policy, development economics and policy, regulatory policies and law. Then you have Indian and international public policy environments where you can look up at what differences there are, what sort of regional, then national, international policies are there. Environment and natural resource policy is something which is very demanding in today's time. Gender in public policy, a lot of research has been done where you're looking how gender norms are working in a particular society or in a particular setup, and what sort of policies are there. So if somebody is from an MBA background also, he can also look up, how in a office setup, gender plays a role, or in a meeting setup, gender plays a role. So all those things come into play over here. Population, migration, and public policy, and then social policies like health policy and education policy, especially in today's COVID time, how things are changing, how we can see a change in these policies in the coming times, where the new normal will be the, something new, which has not been practiced till now, how these policies are going to work in your health sector and education sector. Next slide, please. Over to Tina.
Yes, thank you, Falguni, so much. So here, when we talk about finance and accounting, these are two diverse areas which you will get in the FNA. And talking about finance, first of all, I would like to say now, since we know that the past 1.5 years we are struggling with COVID. So one tip I would like to give you that try to read the papers which has been published in the ABDC journal in 2020. You will find numerous papers talking about the effect of COVID. That is one thing. And coming to the areas in finance, we could have like a behavioral finance, like since how the individuals are preferring to invest in the stock, which stock is more profitable and how they are related. Then you can also have like a stock prices movement. We have various shareholder satisfaction. So these are the diverse area where you can work upon. And coming to the accounting field, we have like corporate governance, reporting standards, auditing controls, and these are the broad areas. So I would request Divyam, because I think he's also from the FNA area. So if he can also add few points, it will be good.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I would say finance and accounting has been a very much developed field in the research. If I particularly look for the accounting area, then I can say earnings management, working capital management, or even there are certain topics that combines finance and accounting in itself as well. So in most of the IIMs or IITs, there's a single department for, like, especially in IIMs, there is a single department for finance and accounting. So you can pick up some topic that could also converge both of the aspects. In finance, there's a conventional thing like asset pricing, or there are certain econometric related applications as well. So I think these are the certain fields in finance and accounting.
Okay. So the next important thing would be drafting SOPs. So this is one thing that really makes a difference to your application whenever you put your candidature at any of the institutions. So this has been a question. I had posted another video once about my PhD experience, and there were so many requests about SOPs. So one thing about SOPs is the first step was to identify the research gap, the area of interest. That has already been talked by my colleagues how to do that and what are the things you can look for. We also gave some examples about what areas can be considered, what topics could be considered. If you talk about drafting SOPs, how to draft them, the first thing should be about your motivation to join the program. What motivates you? Why someone wants to join a PhD program? So someone I have received a query in the chat box maybe that how to develop interest in research field. Now this should come naturally in the sense that the more reading, suppose you have the curiosity to know, that will automatically trigger your emotions towards a particular subject. You will try to read more. So first thing is about the motivation. So motivation could be like, I was doing a lecture on this and that topic, and that is what motivated me to look for more content into this field, and that is how I went deeper, and that motivated me to join the program. Similarly, someone if he comes from a teaching background may say that since I have been in a family of teachers, that is what pushes me to pursue further. So the first para should be motivation. So I remember an SOP in which some girl wrote that it was her first class, and when her professor taught her that, she was really intrigued by the way that he used to teach in the class. His pedagogy was really good, and that is what she also made a part of her life, that she would go on to become very good teacher. That can be one kind of a motivation. So then you have to come to the context of the topic. So suppose you have chosen topic, why the topic is relevant today. Say suppose my topic relates to my topic relates to digital HR. Now suppose in today's arena, while computers and say internet has penetrated so deeper, HR cannot be aloof. So HR also has to sync in with the changing trends. So that builds the context for the topic. Suppose if there is a need for portfolio investment. So why there is a need for portfolio investment? Why do we actually need to study that? So that can be another context. So you really have to build the context of the topic. Why a particular topic that you choose? You feel that it would be a relevant topic to work on. Then you can state the topic chosen. First, we have built the context, and then we are stating what is the context chosen. Also, the review of the literature. What has been done till now? Where will we get this? We'll get this from review papers. So you have to look for review papers in that area. Suppose if it is portfolio management, look for review papers in portfolio management. How has the journey been? Say 20 years of portfolio management, something like that. So if you have some papers like that, that will give you a very broad idea what things have been done. Next is about research methodology. I believe that most of the students here who are appearing for the NET exam, they do have such kind of a subject while appearing for NET. So you have just read that when it comes to actual practice, that this is the application part. Now you know what kind of researches are there, how to do data collection, how to analyze the data. So build on a research methodology. How do you think you are going to you are going to choose? Approach the chosen topic. So that is one thing. So research methodology is a very important part of the SOP. It will really make a difference if you have a clear picture in mind how you go about doing things. Further, now what we have done is we have broadly classified our area. Now we have to say what are the implications of such a research. Suppose I do a research on portfolio management, what will be the outcome of that research? Maybe if I'm coupling it with cryptocurrency, say. So if someone is diversifying his portfolio in terms of, say, cryptocurrency, how things will change? So maybe their behavior will change about investing. So that is one thing. This will give them a better idea. So suppose I'm talking about digital HR. That way, what will be the outcome? Say better policy designs could be there. Employees can be better accommodated. So that thing can be focused on. Then is the concluding remark. So concluding remark could be like, I believe that in the guidance of professors and eminent academicians, I would be able to shape my research journey further in a sense that can be a more fulfilling and a learning exercise. So that can be one concluding remark. You can similarly mold. So that will give you a shape of a good SOP. That is one thing you need to focus on. Next is about the registration form that was floated. So there were various sort of queries. So we have broadly classified them as under. They will be taken one by one. First is about the application process. So Divyam.
So guys, as Abhivya told you in the very starting, that application is the starting process in itself. So you guys need to be very much careful about it. First of all, decide which IIM to apply. I understand the constraint that there are around 20 IIMs, and it is not possible for everyone to fill applications for all the 20. So it is highly recommended always to fill as much applications as you can, because that will give you much more opportunities to apply for, to appear for, to get the call, or to get, or it increases your conversion chances. But if you want to shortlist some, then I would suggest that you can look for both the quantitative and the qualitative aspects. What do I mean by quantitative aspects? Is the research output of the institute, the amenities that institute will provide you. Almost all the IIMs have similar type of amenities regarding the access they have to the resources. But there are certain qualitative factors that differ, like location, your family's expectations. Since you have to spend next 5 years, almost 4 to 5 years in that institution, then I think you should think much in a deeper way rather than just following a thumb rule. Second thing is, make a diary of the timelines. See, timelines are very important. Each and every IIM has a very distinct procedure, like distinct in procedures in themselves for the for the admissions process, regarding the dates or their requirements, what they requires. So you should maintain a proper diary with for each and every IIM that you are focusing upon. Third is, you must visit the website of the institute that you are applying for. Do not look for any other type of conventional pages or anything else. You should once in all, you should visit the main institute's website and look for the application process. Do they require your application form physically? On at which stage you will be required with the references or the recommendations. So the whole process or the curriculum and all the other details have been mentioned in the website holistically. Fourth is the referees and recommendations. All the IIMs do require recommendations from their side, from any of the prior person you have associated with throughout your career. Now, best advice is to talk to them in prior. The day when you are starting with your idea of looking for some research topic or all, you should talk to your referees in prior, and also make them understand the process. Every IIM has a bit different procedure regarding references. Some of them requires them in a physical hard copy. Some of them send their references mail, in which the institute, like your referee, have to mark you. So there are certain different procedures, and you must have a better listening with them in prior. Also, choose your referees very well. The stronger association you have with your referee, better impact it will give to your application form. So supposingly, if you have your association with a person for a month or two, if you will choose him as your referee, I think that will create an issue, because this question may be asked in your interview, that how this person can refer you if you do not know your competence or your skills properly. Then is the check your application status. Many IIMs like IIM Indore or IIM Bangalore do have their own like online. They have well enabled online portals where you can check your application status regularly. There is a fixed set timeline or time schedules that each and every IIM do have. Due to COVID, I think things are a bit disturbed from this year or the past year, but you should keep yourself updated regarding the applications. Don't rely over the thing that you will get a mail or you will get a communication from your side. Be a mover from your own side. And you can also join the Pagal Guy page for the updates. That page do includes all the updates regarding the admissions or the latest updates from each and every of the IIMs. So I think these are the core points that you should take care of in the application process.
So coming to the groundwork, now that you have made your application, your candidature has been recorded, you have at least 2 months as of now before you get shortlisted for any of the IIMs. So suppose in 2 months what to do? In 2 months what to do is, one thing will be get deeper into research. That will make all the difference. There are so many candidates. How do you stand out? One thing is you really have to know your topic well. The better you know your topic, better are the chances of conversion. One thing that is much talked about these days is bibliometric analysis. Go to YouTube, make a search how to do a bibliometric analysis. So there are certain databases like Scopus, Web of Science, Cosmos. There are different databases. Even Google Scholar allows us to do bibliometric analysis. So you have to look for videos. There are very good videos about how to do a bibliometric analysis. That will also add up about your topic. What bibliometric analysis does is it gives you a basic idea about how much has been published, where have majority of the articles been published, who are the prominent authors in this topic, in this chosen area of research. It will also tell us what regions. I mean, say how much of research is coming from India, how much from abroad. That will also do the so this kind of a groundwork will really enlighten you, because you also know the journals in advance, what journals are publishing, who are the authors, what are the themes basically. So you can do that. So bibliometric analysis is one of the things that you need to do as a part of the groundwork. Next is preparing yourself for the interview. Now, what questions will be asked really depends more on your SOP and your idea of research. Had you been the interviewer, what would have been the questions that you would put to the candidate who is coming up with such a SOP or such a topic? So you have to really ask yourselves questions. Ask questions about what can be asked about the topic. Do make a note of them. Try to answer that. Write it down. Once you write it down, it will frame out to be better. It will not be an impromptu. So you are prepared already in advance. That is one thing. Second thing is look for faculty profiles. Now the IIM you are applying to, maybe someone is applying to IIM Shillong. Go to IIM Shillong website. There you will have the faculty profiles of all the faculties that are there in the area. Do some research about what things they are publishing in the present context. What is broadly their area. So that will give you more of a sense of what the IIM would look for. What would be the preferred topics that they would like to work for. So that will do the job. Next is get in touch with seniors. Once you have your SOP ready, once you have applied. So at the time, even at the time of SOPs, what you can do is you can post SOPs to some of us, maybe across different IIMs, and they are kind enough to review your SOPs. Right. So that is one thing that will has dimensions because they have a considerable more idea about research, how things are going on, how to maybe what questions can be expected. They have faced the interview, so they will tell you what things you can really work on. Then is working on feedback. Also, you can talk to them. Like I remember, I have taken some 10 to 12 interviews, mock interviews with my colleagues here. So they have been really kind enough to give their time. So that is one thing. So this grilling, once you are used to it, that will not be a major problem. So either face the problem today or maybe face it in the interview. So it is basically a choice, but it is advisable that you sit for request someone to take a mock interview. Even we people can do it. So you can reach out to us once you get the, but that can be done only once the shortlists are out. So you are shortlisted somewhere, then get in touch about mock interviews. But before that, all the groundwork needs to be done about SOP. So this was about the 2 months that you get to prepare for their interview once you make your application. Yes, Reena, please.
Okay. So here comes your day, what to study before the interviews. So first topic I have taken that revisit your basics of your area and statistics. Guys, this I would like to say that basics of any area is very important. I can take an example of FNA. So in finance and accounting, whatever you study in 11th and 12th, be very much strong with your basics. I can give one example. Few days back, I was attending a final defense of my senior, and you will be surprised to know there was an external from the IIM Lucknow, and he was very much keen, and he was keeping asking the basic questions. I can understand maybe it was online, and on the final defense day, maybe the senior was a little bit nervous. But if you hold your basics very good, it will definitely going to help you in your interview also, throughout the research process, and definitely in your final defense. And second is your SOP is a master key to crack the interview. As very much explained by all the other my colleagues, Abhyuday and Divyam has already explained that how important is your SOP. So make sure whenever you are putting any sentence, any word in the SOP, you are very much clear about it. Let's suppose I have put cryptocurrency in my SOP, and if they start questioning me regarding the cryptocurrency and I'm not able to answer, so definitely this is going to give you a negative feedback. So I will just say that try to get avoid any kind of negative comments from the panelists. And last is your convince your research deal to the panelists why PhD, because even if you go in any kind of an interview, be it a job interview, or they will ask you why this company, why this course, why PhD. And many people shift. I mean, many people are working in corporates, they shift to PhD. So then you have to make a bridge that why you are shifting from corporate to the PhD. So you have a substantial explanation to give. And all I can say that be nicely dressed, work on your communication skills, don't be nervous, and just try to be honest. Whatever they are asking questions, if you don't know the answer, simply say, sir, ma'am, I don't know, and maybe I will work upon that. Don't try to beat around the bush, because they are very much experienced. They have a vast knowledge, and they can easily catch you whether you have the knowledge or not. So that's all. And next slide. I think who is going to take Abhyuday this point?
Falguni, please.
Okay, Falguni, please continue.
Yeah. So see, when you're going for an interview also, or you're writing your SOP also, none of the IIMs or IITs are expecting from you that you know everything about how you're going to do your research, what methods you're going to apply, what results are going to come. But they do look for a bit of understanding of what research methodologies are in research and how you are thinking of doing your research. So I have thrown out a lot of jargon over there, which you don't need to worry about. But you need to understand that when you're sitting for an interview, you should have a basic idea that if I'm saying that such and such topic I'm going to work, what I'm trying to look in that. Am I trying to develop a theory in that, or I'm trying to look more towards the practical implications? That is where you decide what research paradigm you're going to work in. Are you going to induce, or are you going to deduct? Then when I talk about epistemology, ontology, and axiology, these terms are very not easy to understand, and every person, every researcher during the course of PhD and after PhD also try to, work on this, what they really mean. But you should know what you're trying to work on, how you're going to do it, what knowledge do you acquire, what the aim of your research, and how you're going to, work towards it. So these are the basic things which you should know, because if you're sitting for an interview and your interview asks you that, okay, I like the idea which you have written in your SOP, how are you planning to do it? You should know that whether I'm going to apply a quantitative method or a qualitative method or a mixed method. And if do like what you're saying, they can ask you questions about how you're thinking about, collecting your data, what sort of sample you would take, or how would you validate that your whatever sample you have taken is appropriate for the type of research you are doing, how you're going to interpret your aim of the research with the data collected, or how you're going to use different methods and see that is everything fitting in together or not? So I'm not saying go very much deep into this when you are trying to write your SOP or you're giving an interview, but have a basic idea about what research methodologies you're going to use when you're going to pursue your PhD in the coming year. Yeah, next slide.
Komal, please.
Oh, yeah. So when it comes to applying in IIT, the forms are available twice a year. It's once in autumn semester and another is in spring semester. So autumn semester forms are available from February to April. So the time fluctuates a bit, but it is the range in which all the IITs announce their advertisement about PhD, and the forms are available for applying. And the written test and interview are held in around May, June. Result is out by June, July, and admission is usually done by July, and the classes commences from August. It's for autumn semester. And for spring semester, forms are available from September to October. Written test is held in November usually. Results are out in December, and again admission is done by December usually. And classes commences from January. So it is just a standard schedule which they follow, but there can be some fluctuations, right? So there are some key points which comes to be considered, which are to be considered when it comes to applying in IITs. The form which is filled in IITs, unlike IIMs, it's comparatively very easy. So they don't ask much of details like the SOPs and all. These are not very rigorous in IITs, right? Most of them don't ask for it when you are applying for it. So there are very basic details you have to fill, like some basic personal details and basic academic details. Coming to letter of recommendation. So LOR is also not very compulsory for all the IITs. Most of them don't ask it, and even if they ask it, it is not that rigorous and that important like IIMs. Okay, so earlier, the one who was addressing about it said that you have to be in touch with your professors and all. So obviously, you will have to be in touch with your professors to get your letter of recommendation, but it is not something which is questioned about in the interview. It is a kind of formality, and obviously, you will have to be in touch with your professors to get it on time. Okay, and most of the IITs don't ask it, only few of them ask it. Coming to statement of purpose, again, while applying for it is not asked. I think there are only few IITs, one or two, like IIT Roorkee had asked from last autumn semester. It has started to ask a kind of synopsis thing. Again, I think IIT Delhi had asked to submit SOP. So SOP is also not very mandatory for all IITs. It's rarely asked in 2 or 3 IITs. Coming to proposal, again, it is not required while applying in most of the IITs. I think IIT Madras is the one which asks to submit a proposal while applying, and the shortlisting was done on that basis. IIT Delhi asks to submit the proposal after shortlisting the candidates. So if proposal is required, if for most of the IITs, it is required in the later stages of selection, either after you are being shortlisted for interview and written test, or either after you have cleared the written test and now you are being shortlisted for the interview, or they can ask it before to submit before interview, or they can ask to bring it on the day of interview. So it is in the later stages. But again, proposal is also not important, not mandatory for all IITs. And even if it is, even if you can, if you want to carry it to the interview, it's all up to you in some IITs, right? So unlike IIMs, SOP is not important for all, and unlike IIMs, proposal is also not that important for all. But to be on safe side, I would request you or suggest you kind of at least you have to have one good proposal and one strong statement of purpose with some scope of flexibility beforehand, right? You keep it prepared with yourself for one area of interest. If you have 2 areas of interest, obviously you will have to have 2 with some scope of flexibility. Because I'm saying the scope of flexibility should be there because maybe you have one proposal, right? And that proposal is not matching with the faculty in which you are about to submit it. The interest of faculty should match with your proposal in most of the cases. So you have to have some flexibility in it so that you can bring it close to the interest of that faculty. Because the reason for rejection becomes when your proposal is not matching the interest of the faculty. Like, for example, you have applied for health economics in one particular IIT, and if there are no faculty working on that area, then you will not get selected no matter how best your proposal is, right? So these are the things you have to keep in mind. And also when talking about written test and interview, again, earlier it was a norm that most of the IITs used to take written test and interview both. But since the pandemic, Many of them has dropped the written test and only interview is taken. But I think since as they are getting used to the online mode, many of the IITs have again come back to written test. So better you prepare for both. But in many IITs, there is only interview still there due to the pandemic thing. In some of the IITs, there can be 2 stages of interview, like IIT Bhubaneswar takes 2 stages of interview and there is no written test. So these all varies. Only one single strategy will not work for all IITs. There is difference in the pattern of even interview when they come to take it. Some may focus on your proposal and your area of specialization. Some may focus on your area of specialization and basic concept of your area of interest in research, and they'll ask nothing about your proposal and SOP. So these are different strategies you need to follow when it comes to applying in IITs. And I would request you to try to connect. If you're applying for IIT Kanpur, try to connect to one student from there. You can have contacts, right? You can even ask me also. I'm also there. If you want to get in touch with some student from one particular institute, I can help you with that, so far as my circle is there. So it's very, very recommendable and very advisable to do that, to get in touch with the person who is associated with that institute, to actually have a proper grasp of that strategy to crack that interview and written test. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, Komal.
Okay, so again my slide. Yeah, so again, when talking about the fee and financial aid, it varies with IITs. It's not uniform. Something when it comes to your admission fee and first semester fee, it includes everything. It ranges from 40 to 55,000. Like IIT Kanpur has something around 40K, and IIT Roorkee has something around 55K. IIT Kharagpur has something around 50K. So it varies. Somehow there is a difference. It's not uniform for all IITs. Again, the semester fee which you have to pay from second semester onwards, it again varies from 20K to 35K. Again, in Kanpur, there is 20K, I think, per semester, around 20 to 25K. In Kharagpur, it is 35K per semester. So again, it varies, and it includes all the fee: tuition fee, hostel fee, mess charges, almost every regular charges with an institute charges. Stipend amount for institute assistantship, like if you have NET and no JRF or no other scholarship, right, then you have to get enrolled under institute assistantship, and the amount for that is 31K for first 2 years and 35K for next 3 years. And if you have enrolled through JRF, then your stipend amount is 35K for 2 years and 40K for 3 years. And again, if there is some other scholarship through which you have applied and you are eligible, then it will be accordingly. But the institute scholarship is this: 31K for 2 years and 35K for 3 years. Hostel is mandatory in some of IITs, and some of the IITs will allow you to stay out after 2 years. So in that case, maybe your stipend amount will differ because maybe they will provide you with the accommodation allowance when you are out. So there are some provisions right there. And IITs fund 2 national and 1 international conferences. So you will be funded by IIT if you are to attend the international and national conferences. It's 2 for national and 1 for international. Thank you.
Okay, Falguni, if you can enlighten in the similar light about IIMs.
If you're talking about IIM, you have, I think, around 40, yeah, same I would say for the starting. That is when you get the letter of, you're accepted and they ask you for a security amount. That is around 50K across all the IIMs. And apart from that, you have no tuition fee, no hostel fee. A lot of IIMs differ in that way that some ask for a minimal hostel fee, some don't. Some ask for minimal mess charges, some don't. But if we talk about overall, there is no other fee apart from the initial security which you deposit. You get 30,000 in the first and second year as your assistantship as stipend amount, and from third year you will get 33, I guess, and then it increases to 35 when you go to fifth year. If we talk about JRF, I don't think so. Like IIT, IIMs differ the amount of stipend in that way. It is the same across all the scales. Yes, it is. If you are doing a regular PhD residential, you have to take the residence, and it's a residential PhD. You have to live inside, or what are the accommodation they are giving you, and you cannot do it from home. Yes, if you have a family, you are married, there are some circumstances where they allow you to live with your family outside if they don't provide the accommodation inside, and in that case you'll get a RA for it. If we talk about the funding of conferences, it goes the same way, I guess, with it. they fund you for the national and international conferences.
So what happens is this amount is earmarked as 1,75,000 for IIMs. For IITs, I think the international conference funding, I'm not sure about if it is there. Also, another added advantage in IIMs, we get this contingency amount of around 25,000 per year. So that amount is missing in IITs. So if you talk funding wise, so if funding wise, IIMs would be a better place to be. But then that is a very minimal difference. Another thing, if you make a comparison, is like in IITs, you can submit your PhD in 3 years. I mean, minimum 3 years. People do take longer time. But in every IIM, it is at least 4 years. So at least 4 years you have to be at an IIM to finish your PhD.
Also, you'll get a one-time allowance of 50,000 first year to buy your laptops.
Divyam, if you can.
Guys, it's a very, very prominent thing to understand that what are the future opportunities that we have ahead of PhD. So there's a quote that PhD is it's more than a degree. So it's not just a degree where you can think of to do any further thing. You have to be very planned, very much optimized about the thing that what you wish to do, what you will be doing after your PhD. There are various options. Conventionally, it has been a thought that you can enter into academia only after doing your PhD. But as you know, trends have been changing with time. So I have listed down some of the major fields, and I am not saying that this list is exclusive. There could be anybody, like in present time, anybody is independent to choose their things in their own way. The first option is to do a postdoctorate. You can enroll yourself as a fellow scholar or as a postdoctorate scholar after your PhD. Generally, people try to do it from the institution, like from some of the foreign universities, or even when they wish to extend their current projects or their current research interests only. Next is they can work as an adjunct position or as a faculty position. So after your PhD you will be get a chance to be as an assistant professor at you can be at any of the national institutions or even at the top-notch business schools. So basically it varies from your research, like from your PhD research work, also your publications. Third one is the corporate jobs. I would say especially in the areas like operations or in strategy, there are ample opportunities. Even in finance, there are ample opportunities for corporate jobs. Different corporate houses do take consulting projects and where they need PhD scholars. They understand their command over the subjects, their research skills, and they also prefer the PhD candidates for that. Fourth and the very lucrative option is being an advisor or researcher at the think tanks or different government advisory institutions. So we do have so many think tanks in India, especially if I talk about here. So you can be a part of it. I've seen many people who did their PhD or have been associated with many think tanks while their PhDs. So this is a very lucrative option. Third is to become a part of public administration. So here I'm particularly talking about being into administrative positions like IAS or even the UPSC cadre. So I have seen many people who do go for this option after being into PhD, because they understand the vitalities of a particular aspect or a particular subject in a very deeper way. So this helps them in guiding themselves or mentoring themselves towards this direction. And the final option is the consulting or the business consulting or the startup. So people can go for some independent consulting or their own startup, because again the thought is they have a very finer idea about the problem that lies in a particular segment. So that will help them in making or building a startup in a better way, building their idea in a better way. Usually many of the faculties also do the consulting part from their side, that is apart from their regular teaching or the academia work. That gives you well in touch with the with the application part that is there in the that is there in the corporates or in the society, with inclination towards their academia as well. So I think these are the major opportunities that we could have after PhDs.
All right. We are done with whatever we found were the queries from the response sheet. So I will take the query. This has been answered. Okay. So Himali has a question: how to get admission in PhD from IIT? That is done. Anand has a question. He has zero knowledge regarding writing research papers. How to develop that interest and how to focus live for 2-3 years. So first thing, Anand, you don't need to write research papers. First, at least for getting enrolled in a PhD. Once you go there, that is the only thing that is focused on. So they will teach you about how to write a research paper, what are the nitty-gritties. So at this instant, the first thing should be the eligibility criteria. You should first fulfill the eligibility criteria and then work towards making your application a success. Writing research paper can follow after that. So if you work these in a sequence of events, that will be a good thing to do. How to focus like for 2-3 years it takes for you. Obviously, it needs a lot of focus and dedication. It is not an easy degree. It is one of the highest degrees in academia. So that way, obviously, it will need a dedication. But everything looks difficult unless we start. So once it is started, people do carry on. So there are people like us who are already doing, and there are many people who have already done that. So once you get into the process, things become easy. ABDC journals are paid or free, and is it available online? So if you talk about those who are already at IIMs and IITs, they have access to ABDC journals. Even if we do not have, and some other institute have, we have friends there. So you build a network over the process, and that makes things available. If you are an aspirant and you want access to some of the journals, you won't get access to some journals, but if you want some of the papers, you can request the people out there at different institutions to download and send you. That is another option. Hina has a question. I never meet anyone that talk regarding research. My college professors never talk, maybe because I'm not aware regarding research. Falguni, if you can take that.
So see, research is a very, it is not for everyone, I would say. Okay. And people generally don't talk it out loud, like if you're having a conversation with your friends or with your, in your group. So the people who talk about research are very limited, at least I can say in India. And you need to find those people if you're really interested talking about such things. But yes, you can always go to your professor and tell him that I am interested in doing research or in going into a research field. And I'm sure they are going to talk about it, how you can do it, what all topics are there, especially to a faculty who you connect to very easily or a faculty who is in your area. These things can be discussed among your faculties. But if you are thinking that a faculty is going to come in your, if you're doing your master's also or your graduation, is going to talk about research in the class, I hardly doubt that. But you can always reach out to them, or can reach out to anybody who is from a research field. So LinkedIn is a very good option right now where you can connect to such people. Just if you want to talk to somebody who can give you advice regarding maybe your area, your interest, or what research is all about, look for people on LinkedIn, look for YouTube videos, there are a lot of videos of IIM, PhD scholars, IIT PhD scholars who put out their experiences over there, or they talk about in terms of preparing for an IIT interview or an IIM interview, or the whole application process also. A lot of students have put on their videos over there. Just look at them. You'll get to know. So it is not like that there's nobody to talk about it. If you try to find out with a keen mind, you'll find ample amount of people.
Okay. So next is we have a question from Himali. For IIM admissions, is there any exam or set a net will do? Divyam.
I think you should focus on NET JRF, I would say. There is no particular entrance exam for IIMs, but basic eligibility criteria would be NET JRF if you talk about from NET side. Else, the CAT GRE, GMAT is also acceptable. That is varying from area wise. You should better look at the institute's website, what they accept. But if I talk about from the net side, then you should focus on the JRF in any of the fields, whether it is HRM or commerce or for management.
So some places will accept net, some won't. So that is again a homework. You have to look for it, and as Divyam said, accordingly. Hina has a question. If you are doing PhD from IIT IIM, you have to stay there only for 2-3 years. Komal. Komal, if you're there.
I think about IIM now that you have to be there in the campus only. There is no option to stay at home or only under the certain certain genuine reason. For IITs also, I have mentioned that some IITs make it very mandatory to stay there in the campus until you are done with your PhD. But obviously, there can be some genuine reasons, and you can apply to stay out. So it's all up to on the situation. It's not that if some IIT do not allow, then they will not allow at all. It's not going to happen. There are certain conditions you can definitely ask for. And I think when some program is turned into, like if you are into PhD, right? Full-time PhD, then they will ask you to stay there. Right. If they allow, they don't think it's allowed after 2 years. In some IITs, like if you are done with your coursework and registration for PhD, then I think they are allowed to stay out. But if you are not allowed also, there are some genuine reasons, but usually you have to stay there.
So to add
it all depends on which IIT you are applying in and what they...
Right. So to add on in IITs, until the coursework, you really have to stay there. Once you are out of the campus, maybe you want to join a job or something, you can convert it to part-time. So in part-time, you won't get a fellowship.
Yes.
And you can continue apply it even part-time. In part-time, that is a sponsored thing. So in sponsored thing, your college has to sponsor you, that they are taking care of your finances once you are enrolling in a PhD. So that is another option. So this is really technical. You need to look at it on the institute website, also in the brochure. That will make things more clearer. In the IIMs, you really have to stay there. Executive PhD is not at par with the general, the normal PhD that people do. So in IIMs, you really have to stay there. So this provision is not there at IIMs. Coming to the next question, what about universities? How much do they pay? So JRF amount is the same. Is there any chance of getting conversion of wait listing? Parul Narva. So Parul, I think you are wait listed somewhere at the IIMs. Maybe I have seen the name, but this wait listing conversion really is dependent upon the candidate who has been offered admission. If it is not joined, then the wait list can be cleared. But in another scenario, if you are wait listed, and we cannot definitely say. So it really depends upon the candidate before you has been offered. Is there any age limit for getting fellowship? For JRF, Divyam?
Yes, for JRF, there is an age limit of 35. I'm not sure about it now, but
it's 32, I guess. 32.
Yes. So it's 32. But I would say there is nothing like institute-based fellowship. There is nothing age conditions for that, but for JRF it is.
Right. So if someone is getting enrolled in an IIM with a JRF, then also his funding is from the institute. So age does not play a role there. So you can get. What is the usual time needed to make a research proposal? Reena, what is the usual time needed to make a research?
You were asked this question from a person who I have made my SOP like 1 hour. That totally depends. See, if you are very much clear about your topic, I think it will ideally take 5 to 6 hours. What do you say, Abhyuday?
I think it depends upon the rigor that you put to. So maybe if you write it and then send it to some senior for review, and then again you work on feedback, you work on questions, it will take a longer time. So that is everything that you have to focus on. So the time invested really depends on you, and it will also reflect in the output and the quality of answers that you give at interview. So
one more thing I would like to add. In IIM Ranchi, they ask the SOP in the form of PPT. So you can understand in PPT, we cannot put each and everything. We have to very short and crisp. So maybe that in my case, I have been shortlisted in IIM Ranchi. So we don't have to give like a Word or PDF file. We have to give a presentation kind of a sort. So that will hardly have like 10 to 12 sites only.
Right. So coming to Anurag's question, the minimum eligibility criteria or CAT, GRE, GMAT cutoff. So cutoff is really dependent upon profile also. For a general overview, CAT anywhere above 85 is fine. For GRE score 310 above. For GMAT, I really do not have an idea. And CAT and GRE are clear. Arun will come to you. Is it fine to choose paid services for making research proposal? So why would you want a paid service? Why don't you want to work yourself? That will make things better.
Well, I want to explain this question. See, okay, if you will choose the option to go for any professional service for your research proposal, but I don't think you will be able to defend it well in your interview. Your research proposal or even your SOP should reflect your true self, because I would say professors are experienced enough, they are smart enough to judge that very well, that is your SOP is replicating you or not. So if you are a analytical kind of person, your SOP should reflect that. Then only your interview will go in that direction. See, the professor or the interviewer panel, what they all have is your application form and SOP. So don't try to make it up in some other way. Try to make it fine, like try to make it correct. Even it is simple. I have seen SOPs that are very simple in language sense or in their ideas as well, or their motivation as well, but they are genuine enough. So I won't suggest to go for any sort of professional service.
Right. Also, you are choosing this for yourself. Why someone else can write a proposal for you? You can better propose yourself. I think you can do a better job than them. Coming to Hina, sir, not research papers. What we have to write first? I heard about synopsis and research proposal. So there is a little variation about SOP and research proposal. Maybe if someone can cover, Falguni, if you can.
Yeah. I didn't get the question.
So basically, I think she wanted to know about the difference between synopsis, research proposal, and SOP.
See, there is a big difference between SOP and research proposal. Basically, research proposal does not include your overall motivation or the general motivation for the research. Right. SOP, if you describe it, it's statement of purpose. Basically, why you want to go for PhD. Your research idea is just one para of it or one part of it. But if you talk about research proposal, then it needs to be very extensive. What is the introduction about your particular research idea? Then what is the existing literature about it? What methodology you can pick, and what are the expected outcomes from that research? So there is a very wide difference between both of them, and you should keep in mind while like what the institute is asking for you. Is it asking for an SOP or for a research proposal? I think I'm right everywhere.
Yeah, and no institute is asking for a research paper as a criteria for judging you, for your enrollment. Research paper comes much after that. You have written something before, published something before. That is an added advantage for you, but you're not going to be judged on your interview on that basis.
I'm sure about IIMs. None of the IIMs ask for research proposal as well. They just ask for a research idea. Even that you can explain that in 2 lines. But some of the IITs, I am Trichy we asked for the research proposal as well, but IITs do ask for research proposals. IIT Roorkee has asked for, when I applied, IIT Delhi has also asked for the research proposal. I think Komal can explain more about IITs. But for IIMs, I'm pretty sure that they do not ask for extensive research proposal in general.
Okay. So
to add on to that, it's in fact can I add? Hello?
Yes, please.
That I am saying that to add on to that, for IITs, it's quite simple, quite comparatively quite simpler, right? In terms of SOP and in terms of research proposal also. Only few of them ask for it and they are very particular about it. Like in IIMs, your interview, I think they begin from research proposal, research SOP only, right? But in IITs, they will go different way. They will give you a chance in the interview right there that what you want to talk about. Like they will pose some question like, tell us about yourself or what you love to study, what is your interest area. From there, they will start asking. So it's up to you which is your interest area and which area you are interested in, what is your specialization paper or what paper you love to study. Have a very good command on that, and most of the interviews will revolve around that only. Only if some IITs that ask for proposal, they will go deep into it, but it is very rare. It is only with 2 or 3 IITs, I think, but rest of them, it's all about your specialization paper, your interesting paper or your interest area, and some basics about econometrics and statistics.
How does PhD help in public domain or job? So that has been already been explored by Divyam about the opportunities ahead. We have Jagdish, sir. I am having a topic that I want it to be my PhD topic, but I do not have any NET JRF. So how can I get admission in IIT? So you have to have.
Hey, what
So you have to have NET JRF. Without NET JRF, you cannot get admissions. Alternatively, you can also seek other entrance exam scores. So I have made research topic, but I don't know how to make research proposal and literature review. That has been talked about in the SOP, also the groundwork that should help you. What interviewers expect from the answer of candidates, as I got shortlisting in all the IIMs, but could not be able to convert. Don't know where I lacked myself. So Bipul, one thing is that you should have spoken to some seniors about what is your SOP about, how you are going to explain things out there, what is the feasibility of the idea, what questions can be expected. Also, the understanding of the research makes added advantage to your candidature. So maybe if you can connect to any of us, we would be happy to help. Avinash, sir, I have 2 times GRF, but my PG score is very low. What should I do? Divyam.
See, if I talk about, I think both IITs and IIMs do give a weightage for each and every of the component from your side. So your PG score has a specific component, and your NET JRF, like your eligibility with JRF, is a specific component. See, all the IIMs do have the condition that you must have 60% in your PG. Above that, there is no, I don't see a much difference in the overall weightage. See, for 60%, you might get 5 marks for your PG. Then for 80%, you might got 9 marks or 10 marks. So I don't think, in as much as I know, PG could be the reason that your application might got rejected or you are rejected in your candidature if the competition is very close. So I don't think that is.
But at least in IIMs, you can make your other points strong. Maybe you have a very nice, you know, any entrance exam score, whichever you're applying, you have very, very nice score in that, or your SOP is so good that, so they will just, you know, ask, casually gonna ask you in your interview that why your score was low in your master's, and if a genuine reply, if it was low because of, you know, reason that you have some distraction also, you just say it genuinely. Don't make up answers over there. That is what it is.
And
but
you can also make it up. And you can also make it up through some conference publications or something like that. So there are various. So I don't think there is a specific fact that you can say like I don't have my PG score good and that's why my application got rejected. I don't think so.
Or if I can talk another way, so if you have qualified JRF 2 times, so better thing would have been to do to get a degree, another master's degree from Open. So that could be one thing, but at least what Divyam and Falguni are saying, that is also very much right. Next we have Hina, sir, I have qualified NET in commerce. So I heard that I'm eligible to teach in college after doing JRF. You can even apply with a NET score, Hina. JRF would be desirable, but NET will also do. So some places do accept NET score. You are eligible to teach in college. So maybe if you look at the bigger picture, maybe you get to teach in a university or an IIM or IITs once you have your PhD. What is full-time PhD and part-time PhD? What are the major differences? So full-time PhD is you stay on the campus with a stipend and do your PhD with normally how the candidates do. What is the major difference? So major difference would be fellowship. Part-time candidates do not get fellowship. Also, part-time candidates do not have to stay in the campus. What about GATE fellowship?
Have weekend classes in part-time or executive PhD.
Right.
Don't have weekday classes.
Also, not all the IIMs, not all the institutions provide post like all the institutions provide the regular opportunities, but most of them do not provide part-time. So you have to look for it more carefully.
So Himali is asking about GATE fellowship. So GATE is accepted everywhere across IIMs, but the area you are applying to, so you have to check with the institute if they accept GATE score in that area. So GATE fellowship, it works. It is, if you have a GATE score, you can apply. Can you share in group 2-3 SOPs just for an idea, or we will see to it if we can. What are the eminent universities that provide part-time PhD apart from IITs and IIMs? I think this has to be more research by yourself to add on. There are certain institutes like Symbiosis and BITS and others which you can look for. Also depends on the area. How is PhD from IIT IIMs different from PhD from central and state universities? So Reena, if you can take that.
Yes, Abhyuday. See, it totally depends whether you want to go in the academic field. Because I can give you one example. Many premier institutes, if you want to teach in a premier institute, then definitely they ask PhDs from IIT and IIM. This is a very, I can say, a harsh reality, but it is. Because I have seen one of my colleagues, she was teaching in a college, and she has done her PhD from State University. And when she applied to a not very top premier or normal institution, she has given her CV, and she didn't get a reply 1 year. It has been 1 year and she didn't get a reply. See that. So if you want to be like, no, I want to teach in IIM, or let's suppose a Ford School of Management, some in a grade A colleges, if you want to target that as a faculty, I will tell you surely go for IIT or IIM. That is the thing. Yeah, there is some disturbance. Are you asking something?
No, I think she is talking to someone. So also the added thing is like IITs and IIMs, they are centrally funded. So you'll have better exposure and better opportunities here at IITs and IIMs. And if you really have to do a PhD, why do it from a central or a state university? Why not IITs, IIMs? If they are the best, then you should try.
Talking particularly, state universities generally do not even have access to the journals itself. So you will find that type of journals access or even much more databases at the IIMs or the IITs, but not at the central universities or the state universities.
Right.
And then there's a huge difference in the rigorousness of the course and the type of grilling you will get in central universities and IITs.
Right. So can you please name some universities of Rajasthan? You should do this homework. I scored 99. This is good in NET, but try to get a GRF. Do they give weightage to your score of NET and GRF? No weightage to score per se. The eligibility will do. So either you have a GRF or a NET. That is it. GRF is always given preference. For applying GATE fellowship, is there any age limit? No age limit, at least at IIM Simali. You can apply for GATE fellowship. There are people who are in their 40s, they are also doing their PhD. So that should not be an issue. If we have anything else.
Yes, hi mentors. I wanted to ask one question. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Please go on.
So I wanted to ask is like few of the IIMs are giving opportunity, like if someone is PGDM from IIMs, they can skip the first year course and they can directly shift to the second year course.
Right.
So I wanted to ask that are there any exceptional cases that if someone is doing MBA from IIT and going for the PhD, they can skip the first year course and directly jump to the second year?
So in that way, you really have to see the curriculum of the IIM. So if I talk about my IIM, that is IIM Kashipur, we have research and foundational courses, research methodology courses from the first year. So there is no point in getting a waiver. So even if you get a waiver, then how will you cover the first year courses? So that provision is missing here because our curriculum is really remodeled in a way that we do not have to sit with MBA people. We really have research courses. But if you see, I am Lucknow. There you have to have all the courses to be done with PGP students. So they give waiver to the first year guys who have their MBAs from grade A colleges. So that can be requested. Even some other IIMs, maybe Indore also does that. Some other IIMs also do that. So really you have to look for that. So that is
so for that, I wanted to take one advice. For example, this year I'm getting the opportunity to get into MBA program in one of the IIT and maybe in the lower IIM like Bodh Gaya and Sirmaur. So I wanted to ask, my only aspiration is to pursue PhD down the line. So should I prefer high cost IIMs or should I go with the IIT if I want to get into the FPM program of old IIMs? Will it make any impact in my career?
No, I don't think it will impact. Impact the institution will impact. The category of the institutions will impact. All the point I want to make is, you will get waiver only, like it is a pointer constant thing. You must have 8 pointers in your MBA for getting that exemption. I think, am I right, Abhivya?
Oh, that is
I
for.
would like to add also. Sorry for the interruption. I would like to add for the IIM Ranchi. I think if you are doing MBA from IIM and if you have a 6.5 pointer, then your first year will be waived. This is for IIM Ranchi.
Yes.
And in the similar lines, IIM Calcutta also follows. See, where in all the IIMs where first year is like a MBA, you can get waiver for that course if you are doing MBA from from the sister institutions like IIM. So I think at this point of time, it will be beneficial if you go for an IIM for MBA, because after 2 years and after 3 years, you can go for PhD. Your PhD will be not of 4 years. It will be of 3 years only. So I will say accordingly, you choose among all the institutions you got the offer.
Okay, thank you. One last doubt is also regarding that if someone is joining the FPM or PhD program at the age of 29 or 30, will it hamper the career down the line, like completing PhDs at the age of 30 or 35? I have seen that few institutions are giving the age boundary to recruit the professors at the lower level. Like
so that age limit applies to IITs, but if you talk about IIMs, so there are people who are in their late 40s. As I said, I remember when I was at IIM Calcutta for my interview, another candidate who was with me was 60 or something. So it is age is not really here considered, because people come with WorkX. So WorkX is also given priority in terms of selection at the instant of PhD. So because they bring in new experiences, so that would not matter much, at least for IIMs. For IITs, yes, there is a age limit. So at the level of assistant professor, they prefer that mostly you have to be below 35. That is one thing.
Thanks a lot.
Hello, sir. I had a doubt. Can I ask my doubt?
Yes, Anurag.
Yes, sir. So what happened with me was, sir, I have already been associated with IIT Delhi, where I published 2 research papers, sir, and I also had a GRE scorecard of 305. Okay. Sir, I applied to IIM Shillong and I applied to other IIMs as well. I did not get a call from them for the interview because I don't know for what happened, sir. And I really wanted to know, and I had one more question, sir. Like, can you just brief me on this question, sir, first?
So the first question would be not getting a call. Have you completed your degree?
Yes, sir. I've done my MBA from NIT Rourkela.
I mean, which year?
So 2019, I passed out. In 2020, I joined IIT Delhi as a research assistant.
So I think there would have been some technical issue, because at this instance, the profile sounds good to me. So you would have, it also depends upon what IIMs you have, say, applied to. So if you can also diversify your options, because different IIMs have different criteria, because even 305 score, although it is not too good, but it is doable. You should have got a call. So you have to look for options. What other IIMs you have applied to? So maybe you can diversify that. So that will help. Every IIM is good here, and because it depends really on what year the IIM was set up. So institutions take time really to get into shape.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, actually, I got a call from MDI Gurgaon and XLRI Jamshedpur. Those are like, sir, under process. So the second question is, sir, like while preparing for my proposal. So, sir, I worked in the area of strategic management, and sir, I wanted to know if I apply to a specific institution, like you mentioned before, that if there is a particular professor, there is only one professor, and his interest line should line with my proposal. So I have to like modify every proposal, like every institution, like accordingly.
No, that is not a feasible thing to do. So basically, if you are targeting IIM, so the broad area would be much kind of a similar. Suppose in strategy, if it is like something related to strategy, so you can really choose it broader, and at the same time keep it optimized to a level that it is not too narrowed down, it is not too broad. So that will be one advice. Also, the research that you might be looking at, so it would be relevant across IIMs. Every IIM has a professor in that area, at least because they're teaching that kind of a course. In IITs, things are a bit different.
Okay, sir. So I have to like make a proposal which can be aligned with almost all the faculties. Like
so that it does not just stands out in a way that they don't consider it. That should not be the case.
Okay, sir, got it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else if anyone has something? So here Ruby has a question. What are eminent universities that provide part-time PhD apart from IIT and IIMs? Ruby, you really have to look for that because if we discuss this here in the session, it will be too long. And the list also, like we do not have a list as of now, but considering the management institution that someone also was already mentioning, Symbiosis, XLRI, and you have to look for what BIMTech is one, then IRMA is one. So these are institutions that you can look for. It really depends on the area. Okay, sir, please suggest some name of doing PhD in Rajasthan. So in Rajasthan, Divyam, if you can.
See, in Rajasthan, I would suggest you should better get connected with one of the faculties, because things are, I should not say that officially, but in state universities things are quite complicated regarding the admission things. They do have some different priority criteria. Many of the faculties that have joined through the RPSCs, they usually got preferences while enrolling for the PhDs. So things are quite dynamic at state universities. It's not that much transparent as you can see in IITs or IIMs. So better to get in connection with someone from faculty side. You can get their details from the website of the university.
Okay. So if there is say a need be, or you feel like you should have to speak to someone, you can get these from our institutions. Also, we are available on social media to answer any of the queries. If we have something else, or we can wind up. It's already 1.5 hours as of now. Okay. So Shreya ma'am, over to you. Thank you very much for this opportunity of sharing our ideas. I hope that this session will be much helpful to the candidates. And in case there are any doubts or any advices needed, they can get back to us. They can write to us. Over to you, Shreya ma'am.
Thank you, Abhyuday. Thank you, all the dignitaries here, Komal, Reena, Falguni, Divyam. Thank you all for joining and for your valuable time, all the participants here. So the